If feedback actually transformed culture, then most schools wouldn't still be stuck. The issue isn't that teachers don't get feedback. The issue is that most new leaders confuse evaluation with coaching, and culture pays the price. Today, I want to talk to you about how coaching and feedback done the right way can completely transform a school's culture, not through pressure, but through clarity and trust. What's going on, aspiring school leader? I am Dr. Donovan Smalls II, assistant principal, best-selling author, school leadership coach, and I help aspiring school leaders confidently land their first leadership role and lead with impact from day one. Today's topic is coaching and feedback that transforms culture. Now, many times when we think about coaching and feedback, we think about it from the perspective of improving teacher practice. And obviously that's true, right? The levels of coaching and the levels of feedback that we are able to give teachers on an ongoing basis, not just relegated to the evaluation period, that completely is going to improve teacher practice. We get that. But it also has a profound impact on the culture of the building. And what I mean by culture, I mean by the habits, the practices, the things that are done on a daily basis, the attitudes of the individuals who we are leading. All of that has to do with the culture of the building, and we are responsible for shaping that culture together. Yes, the teachers are also responsible for it, right? All of the adults, we are responsible for shaping the culture, but as leaders, we have to be the ones to spearhead that and take responsibility for the things that we are doing and the things that we need improvement in. So when we talk about coaching and feedback that transforms culture, I'm going to talk about three keys that are going to help that process. And number one is coaching before correcting. See, as a leader, it is our responsibility to also be a coach. And if we see things that are not ideal, if we see a lesson that maybe we thought could have been taught differently, or there were aspects of the lesson that we didn't agree with, that's where we cannot run from coaching. That is our responsibility. We do not have a right as a leader to complain about a situation if we don't want to show up and be a solution. Coaching is the answer. Culture breaks down when feedback feels like judgment. But culture strengthens when coaching feels like partnership. See, as a leader, as a coach, we don't want to take the posture of, here is a laundry list of things that the teacher has not done well, and these are the ways that you need to improve, right? Yes, there is an aspect of correction. Yes, there is an aspect of, these are the things that you've done wrong and I need to step in and show you what's going on. But we need to have a level of partnership with that teacher, give them a voice and be inquisitive, right? Inquire about a situation prior to trying to automatically go in and correct, because many times, well, if not all the time, right? The teacher is the one that's in the classroom. They have a different context in terms of why they are implementing what they are implementing. And as a coach, it is our responsibility to hear them out, take in what they're saying, and then be able to provide levels of coaching that is going to transform the culture of that classroom, and consequently, right, or subsequently, that is going to transform the culture of the school, because we're looking at coaching as partnership and not just correction. It's not you need to do what I said. It's how can we do things together to cause a level of improvement that we need to see. Most leaders jump straight to fixing, because many times as leaders, we want to fix things. We want to make it right. And I get that. But coaching is not telling people what to do. Coaching is helping people see their own thinking and practice. And we are partnering with them to help them see those blind spots so that we can improve together. Again, we are partnering with teachers when we are coaching them. We are not trying to fix people. We are not in the business of just, this is what you need to do and I'm telling you what to do, and if you don't do it, you're going to get written up. That's not leadership, right? If you are constantly writing people up, I need you to look in the mirror and think about the levels of support that you have provided or you haven't provided, right? If you're going to take action towards writing someone up, or you find yourself in a punitive posture most of the time, think about what levels of support that you have provided. Have you provided any levels of support? Or are you just writing people up with the expectation of them already, they should have known how to do this, right? And many times you're coming into a classroom with a different lens that they don't have. They don't get to see things from the outside of them, right? You can't see the picture when you're in the frame. There are things that they are not able to see, and that's why it is a partnership. It is a partnership. When leaders correct too quickly, you're actually training dependency. When leaders coach first, you're actually building capacity. I want you to remember that. Let me say that one more time. When leaders correct too quickly, they train dependency. When leaders coach first, they build capacity. Think about a child riding a bike, right? First, they have the training wheels on, and they are dependent on those training wheels in order to ride their bike consistently. But now, as we start to teach a child how to ride a bike without training wheels, yes, you might be holding them up. Yes, you may be supporting them. But at some point, you want them to be dependent on their own, right? You want them to be able to thrive and ride that bike on their own and go out with their friends and have a great time and be safe and all those things. But you're not going to be able to do that if you constantly keep the training wheels on. And so we cannot be building teachers that are codependent on our feedback or our levels of feedback all the time. It should be that we are releasing them, we are teaching them, we are coaching them in ways that they can fly and do things on their own, and they have a level of autonomy that we have given them to make mistakes. Because sometimes if we're not allowing teachers to create and to do things and to be innovative, and we're coaching them in those ways and in that direction, they're not going to feel safe to take risks. And risks are when growth happens. And that's ultimately what we want in order to improve teacher practice and increase student achievement. So number one, our first key is coaching before correcting. And that's what helps transform the culture. Number two is alignment over opinion. Feedback without shared language creates confusion, not growth. See, during my first year as a vice principal, we had calibration meetings. What that means is we would, two administrators would go into a classroom to do a walkthrough. And we would write down everything that we saw, everything that we heard. And then we would come back to the conference room to talk about what we saw, what we heard. We would run through the evaluation together. We would score the evaluation together. We would talk about common language. We would make sure that we were on the same page, right? The calibration meeting was so critical and important because it allowed us to be on the same page. Because if we're giving different types of feedback to different teachers, we're actually building and cultivating a fragmented culture because there is no common language. There are no common expectations. And so these calibration meetings really helped us because it helped us to be on the same page. It helped teachers to hear a common message that ultimately fell under the umbrella of the principal's vision. That is so important, right? And when you get into that first leadership role, I want you to think about that. Maybe it doesn't exist or maybe it won't exist in your school, but maybe that's something that you can bring to the table when it comes to helping to improve the culture of the building. Culture suffers when feedback sounds different depending on the leader. So coaching must be anchored to vision, instructional priorities, and shared definitions of quality. When feedback is based on opinion, teachers feel evaluated. And yes, obviously they are getting evaluated. I don't want to dismiss that. But when feedback is aligned to shared expectations, teachers actually feel supported. Teachers know when things are fragmented. Teachers know when one particular leader is a strong instructional leader and they're giving quality feedback and they are actually taking it seriously, and the other leader is not, right? Like, they know. And so if we want culture to be cohesive and everybody on the same page, then we need to have these calibration meetings as leaders, because it's only going to improve the culture and climate of the school and ultimately improve teacher practice. And that's what we want. So the impact of these calibration meetings, the impact of alignment over opinion is going to mean that teachers are going to be less defensive, and you are going to be less defensive when you get feedback from teachers, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. You'll send fewer mixed messages and also stronger collective efficacy. And we know that collective efficacy and teacher efficacy is a huge factor when it comes to increasing student achievement, because teachers feel supported. They feel confident in what they're doing. They feel confident in their ability to take risks. And that's ultimately what we want, because growth lives where we take risks. Number 2 was alignment over opinion. And lastly, leverage consistency. I want you to leverage consistency. Culture doesn't change because of one great conversation. It changes because of repeated, predictable leadership behavior. Repeated, predictable leadership behavior. Repeated, predictable leadership behavior. We want to be able to create patterns of anticipation when it comes to our feedback and our coaching. There should be a level of expectation when you sit down with teachers to have that coaching conversation that we often call an evaluation. There should be some sort of consistency in terms of what they expect from you and what you expect from them. And if there isn't, I want you to ask yourself, am I being consistent in the feedback that I'm giving? Because a lack of consistency is not going to yield the results that we're looking for to improve teacher practice. It's not. And then the culture is going to suffer. So you have to be able to have consistent and ongoing conversations, and they don't always have to be formal. You could be walking through the hallway with the teacher that you have met with and talk about some of the things that they're doing and quickly give levels of feedback within 2 to 3 minutes, right? Coaching conversations can happen during lunch duty. Coaching conversations can happen during bus duty. They don't always have to be formal. Yes, you should have a formal meeting, yet at the same time, where are there pockets of time, right? Because we know time is limited. Where are there pockets of time that you can utilize to actually coach people? Inconsistent coaching breeds mistrust. Teachers are watching what leaders do over a period of time. So consistency is going to communicate that you actually have a commitment to their growth, which is going to, again, yield positive results regarding the culture of the building. People don't trust what leaders say once. They trust what leaders do repeatedly. So I want you to set goals to follow up. I want you to revisit those goals and close feedback loops. Over the past couple of weeks, what I've learned is that feedback, and we know this, right? But as leaders, sometimes we fall into the constantly giving feedback and coaching, but not actually receiving feedback and coaching from teachers. I think that if we are going to be coaches, if we're going to be leaders who coach, we also need to be coached. That means open up the levels of communication. Let's get out of our feelings. Let's not always get offended when teachers are giving us feedback, because feedback is our friend. Feedback is what actually helps us to all be calibrated and be on the same page. And it improves the culture of the building, because if you're somebody who cannot receive feedback from your teachers are going to shut down. And yes, there are going to be conversations outside of what you hear that are not going to yield the results that you're looking for as a leader, right? So you might have a false perspective of your leadership because you haven't opened those lines of communication. It might be, you open the lines of communication with a select few people, but how can you open up the lines of communication for every system that you have in place so you can see how things need to be improved within your building, right? All of those things are important. That feedback loop and closing those levels of feedback, I'm telling you, it's going to be critically important to the improvement of the culture of your building. And consistency is how you build that level of credibility, right? It has to be built. So if you're a leader listening to this, I want you to ask yourself, am I building a culture where feedback feels like accountability, or a culture where feedback feels like investment? You want to be able to make levels of investment. You want your feedback to feel like, if I need to make a withdrawal, right? If I need to ask a teacher to do a thing, then I've made the levels of investment so that it does not feel like interrogation. It does not feel like solely accountability. It feels like partnership. But if I haven't made the levels of investment that I properly need to make, or that I should have made, then it's going to be impossible for me to make a withdrawal because I have not made the proper levels of deposits. So consider that. Consider the fact that we need to make coaching partnership and not always trying to hold people accountable to expectations that we have not properly communicated over a consistent period of time. So today we talked about coaching and feedback that transforms culture. We went through 3 keys. We talked about coaching before correcting, alignment over opinion, and leverage consistency. Now, if you are an aspiring school leader, you may be preparing for interview season because it is coming up. And I want you to constantly be on the lookout for these new job opportunities for you to step into your first school leadership role. If you need levels of support regarding interview preparation, leadership development, so you can be that leader that steps into that first leadership role and you are ready to transform culture one day at a time with levels of consistency and through coaching and feedback, reach out. Let's have a conversation, because this is exactly what I help aspiring school leaders do. I help aspiring school leaders confidently prepare for their first leadership role and lead with impact from day one. If that's you, let's have that conversation. Let's get you to exactly where you need to be. I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, I hope you have a great week of teaching, leading, and learning. Take care.